Hello, my name is Angela Normington, and I'm doing my instructional methods presentation on play-based learning for curriculum in school libraries. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is overview of the method. What is play-based learning? So it's also known as PBL. It's learning through play, and you can range from child-directed to teacher-directed play. It depends on what you're going for. There's different ways to approach adding play into your classroom, and we'll talk about that. And then there's also different methods lead to different skill development outcomes. So if it's the play is more child-directed, you're going to have different outcomes than if it's more teacher-directed. Like the role of teacher affects outcomes. So kids play differently as they age as well. So you might think it might be more beneficial for, younger grades like kindergartners or, first graders, but kids that are older play as well. It just might look a little different than we expect. Okay, so there's some benefits of play. There's developmental learning and there's academic learning. So developmental learning will include things like social, emotional skills, self-regulation, communication, different types of, important things they need to know in the classroom, like transitions, sharing materials, cleaning up, being responsible. It also can build confidence and help them express their feelings and ideas. And then on the academic learning side of things, it develops their cognitive skills, like more focused. A lot of the research is more focused on literacy and numeracy, and how those two academic skills can get better through play. But ways that can happen specifically is like hands-on play with counters and shapes for math. And when it comes to literacy, like you can create connections between words and concepts with play. And then you can play out stories with hands and objects. And these are just some ways that those skills can develop. So how to use the method. So it's used, and as I mentioned before, that it ranges from child-directed, let me see if I can get my mouse over there, child-directed all the way to teacher-directed. And now a more child-directed version is free play, which is basically pretend play. And then it goes up to the next more, it's still child-directed mostly, but there is more teacher collaboration, and that's called inquiry play. So the student will lead the play, but the adult will add in an educational element of some sort. So in the middle here is collaborative. It is just as much the teacher as it is the student playing. And let's see. So it's also supposed to be the most effective for academic and cognitive and social and emotional skill development is this collaboratively designed play. And then if you go towards more teacher-directed play, but still, playful for the student, is playful learning. And it teaches academic skills in a playful manner. And then learning through games is where like a teacher will, it's a very, there is something the teacher is trying to teach and is very intentional learning, but it is orchestrated through a game. And the role of teacher can vary from collaborator to director. So, oops. All right, so effectiveness of the method. All right, so research suggests that it works. So social development and play-based learning. One study found that it was 147 preschoolers. The goal was to improve their executive functions. There was two different types of curriculum that they implemented, and one was a play-based program called Tools of the Mind, and then the other one was just a classic literacy curriculum. It was more like explicit instruction based. And the play-based program had an emphasis on dramatic play. So and what happened was the play-based program was so successful that they didn't even continue into the second year of the study. They didn't even want to bother because it was so successful. So they adopted after the first year. And then there was a lot of different research articles that Bergen pulled together, and just these are some of the highlights for cognitive development and play-based learning. So research shows playful interaction improves mathematical skills like numeracy, classification, spatiotemporal relationships. increased development of the central conceptual structures of thought, and preschoolers that were exposed to literacy play showed greater pretend language development as they got older. Okay, so some barriers and misconceptions that affect play-based learning. Now, a lot of, parents and upper level teachers or upper grade teachers want to emphasize explicit instruction. So they one of the things they say is, well, they need to know how to do it when they're young in kindergarten, and it's not necessarily the case. They don't realize that kindergartners aren't necessarily going to thrive in an environment where it's explicit instruction. So there's another thing that affects play-based learning is there's high teacher-to-child ratios, and lack of professional development can affect it, and there's inconsistent enactment of PBL pedagogies even when mandated by policies. So even if a school district wants everyone to be doing play-based learning, the ways that those teachers will implement it in their classrooms is inconsistent, because there's, like the next thing he says, that play has a definitional misalignment that holds it back. Some people think play means only free play, and some people think play means, like play-based learning, where they're actually playing games and they're learning like that, and they don't really realize that there's a range and that there's certain outcomes that can come out of it if you choose a certain type of play. So these things hold back play-based learning, and it's super successful, but people just don't really know how to implement it correctly. So examples of the method, things that you can do in a school library. A scavenger hunt would be a fun game, having kids search for things on the shelves or learn how to search for something on the computer. Or you read them a story, then they can role play it. And then there's this link, and you can scan it if you'd like, called Factually, Games to Teach Media Literacy. So all of these pictures here show the first page of these various games that kind of talk about, misinformation online and how to spot it, things like that. So it could be, it's a fun way to teach kids about that stuff. But one thing to note is the links are broken on the Factually website, but you can find the games by Google search. It's just a nice list of them. It's just none of the links work for some reason, but all when you search them on Google, they're all there. How is it useful? So neurons that fire together, wire together. MRIs can show that the entire brain lights up and connects during play. So neuroscience confirms that play is like an adhesive that helps learning stick. So it's useful because it's effective. Some resources. There's a collection of TED Talks on play up here, and then let me get the mouse. And then the Play Learning Lab is it's a website that was designed to literally talk about play-based learning, and has lots of examples, and even has some resources you can use and printables. The American Journal of Play it's just a journal that talks about play. And then this is just 100 ways to play, different ideas for, that sort of thing. And then the Encyclopedia on Early Childhood Development has a whole section on play-based learning to describe it in more detail. And then here's my references. And thank you.